El Paso, Texas, on a pretty good size roof system this morning here in El Paso, down along the Mexican border. The border is literally right over there. Like, that's Mexico right there. But before you get to Mexico, you have this 350 square monster that is covered with hail damage, and we've got this elastomeric coating. It's all over this roof, and if you look close, we did some core samples. There's also aluminum coating. It's really old 2 and 3 ply built up system on different levels of this roof, and fiberboard underneath. But man, I'm like a kid in a candy store, right? Like, look at this sucker, nice size. I'm gonna have to get a drone up over top of it, and just so that I could properly see it, see what all I'm dealing with. But got this section over here I just showed you. Get all this down here. A lot of water-soaked underlayment, decking that's wet, or fiberboard that's roof covering's wet. It's got a metal deck. AC units damaged, lots of those. Have another level down here, and you can see hail hits in the coating, elastomeric coating, circular indentations pretty much throughout. And if you get up on the top of the stuff that's not coating, you see you have fibers coming out of it, and you can see circular indentations on that as well. And so you just really have to get, you know, close up on the stuff, and you start to be able to see circular indentations like this right there. I'm not talking about this, I'm talking about that right there. Circular indentations, right? There's more of them pretty much all over this roof. And you want to look up on the parapets. You usually see them real good there, right? So now look, a lot of you guys and gals, I think a lot of your problem is like, well, the insurance company comes out, but all they want to do is just pay. You know, they don't think that there's any hail damage other than the coating, even though I could show them on this particular roof. You know, there's damage everywhere. But a lot of times you're just going to find damage on the coating, like what I was just looking at and showing you. Take it. If they want to give you coverage on just the coating only, I say take that coverage, because it opens the door, and now you can submit an estimate back to the inside. If you can show them later that the roof coverings underneath the top layer are water soaked, and that's just one of many ways to get it bought. But if you have the top coat, you know, it's like elastomeric coating, and it's damaged and it's fractured, and they're willing to concede to that, and they'll pay you to basically recoat it. Well, that's not going to be possible, because the building codes are not going to allow you to put a recoated coating system on if there's water-soaked underlayment underneath, or any kind of water-soaked roof covering. So now you've got to go all the way down to the deck, and we're going to expose the roof cavity on this, and that's going to require us to bring all the R values up to code. And this is a 2015 International Energy Conservation Code. El Paso, Texas. All of Texas currently uses the 2015 IECC, and El Paso is no exception. Circular indentations, right? Lots of those. So anyway, back to the IECC deal. 2015 IECC. This right here is Climate Zone 3, I believe, out of the IECC. So that means that you're going to have an R25 R value to the roof deck here. So you're going to have to add ISO to your estimate, and that's how you get the upgrades bought on the ISO. Now, if they don't have ordinance and law coverage, OL coverage, which is basically building code upgrade coverage in their policy, then they're not going to pay you for ISO board. So you're going to have to try something different. But and you know, if you're a contractor, or if you're working at the contractor level, as I am, by the way, then you can't talk about policy and coverage. That's not something that I'm going to even discuss with them, as policy and coverage, really ever. So, you know, if you're a contractor and you can't talk about policy and coverage, but yet you have to know that information, then what do you do is your question, right? Like, how do you find out that information? Well, I think it's okay as a contractor, like if you're signing up a client, you're signing them up and you're signing your contract paperwork and all of that, I think it's okay to do an introductory email to the agent sent from your customer, if you will. Pardon me while I safely try to get down. That just basically says, look, we have hired such and such construction company as our general contractor to make all the repairs to our property that we recently underwent, and they need to know a couple things about, or we need to know a couple things that relates to that. And one of which is, does our policy have ordinance and law coverage, building code upgrade coverage? And if so, are there any limitations to that? Because a lot of times they'll have that coverage, but there'll be like a 10% cap, like 10% of the policy limit cap, or 5% even I've seen, or maybe $5,000, something crazy, right? The policy is always going to dictate what kind of coverage they have. And so it's not up to me to review their policy to find that out. I'm not qualified to do that. So I would ask them to ask their agent those questions. While they're at it, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, or Mrs. Agent, do I have an actual cash value policy or a replacement cost value policy? You know, it's very important to know that too, right? And there may be some other things that you may want to know about. If it's a metal building or metal roof, you may want to know about certain types of exclusions, cosmetic and different types of marring exclusions. You might want to know about some of those things. But beyond that, I don't want to know anything about the policy. I'm not going to deal with policy or coverage, but I do want to know, do they have that building code upgrade coverage? Now here's something interesting. This is there's swimming pools underneath these roofs up here, and look at these. Look at that damage. So we've dealt with these quite a few times, but I'm going to go ahead and do some more research on this, and if anybody knows and they're looking at this, because there's two layers here, right? And the top layer's damaged and the bottom layer's damaged too. And so you have, I believe, certain gases, maybe argon and such, that's gotten out. And I'll just be honest with you, I'm gonna have to do some research on that one. Sometimes you come across something that you're not familiar with, and that's okay, because if you're a general contractor, you should be able to research these things and solve them. I think that's what a general contractor really does, right? And so if I'm working on, for a general contractor, which I am on this, I'm going to try to help them solve anything. And then we have this roof here, which is similar, but I'm going to have to search a lot harder to find the damage on that. I'm going to take my drone and fly it up over this whole place also, get it from all different angles. But so we did core test on every one of these levels to determine how many layers we're dealing with. And if you haven't heard me talk about this before, I think you should include all of those layers in the estimate, in the Xactimate estimate. And I think that you need to, probably many of you are already including the removal of these layers in the estimate, right? The labor to remove. But don't they owe the actual cash value for every single layer that's here, no matter what kind of project is ever done? Like it doesn't really matter which kind of roof system you ultimately do. But on the estimate portion, the upfront money, don't they, I mean, what if they decided never to do it? They still owe them the ACV value, right? So don't they owe them the ACV value for every single layer that's there? So I've been winning on, you know, on a big level many times by getting them to pay for the ACV value of every level or every layer that's there. And then of course you amend your estimate to an invoice when the job is done to reflect only what has been incurred, only the one layer that you went back with. So let that sink in for a little bit. I think that you need to, you know, and how do you do that? A guy asked me yesterday, how do you present that to the customer if you're not allowed to talk about policy and coverage? Well, I think what you do is you explain, you know, basically how the insurance company calculates the construction items and the fact that they withhold, you know, because I know a lot of you are already doing that. Well, look, they hold back the depreciation, you know, along those lines. And one of the things you can say is, you know, a lot of my clients, or a lot of clients that I know of, or however, I don't want you to be dishonest in any way or misleading, but you need to be able to pitch that to your client in a way that's like, you know, a lot of my clients, or a lot of clients will want all the layers listed and itemized in the estimate so that the insurance company can properly calculate the correct ACV value for all the layers that are there. And if you really let that sit in and you start to think about that, now you're starting to think about how you can come up with ways to get around these high deductibles that people have, or even ways to help people with ACV policies that you normally wouldn't take the job. And so if I say that to the client, knowing all of that, if they understand and I educate them on that, knowing all of that, how do you want me to put it in the estimate? Do you want me to leave it out of the estimate or include it in the estimate so that they can know how to pay you properly on all the layers? And of course, if they understand you correctly, they're going to definitely want you to include that in the estimate. So that's a good way to do that. And then in the estimate, I have an opening statement where I'm basically like, look, in this estimate, there are multiple building materials listed for all the layers of the roof system. And the reason why that is because my client has asked me to include all layers in the estimate in order to properly calculate actual cash value, right? So now you're talking to the insurance carrier and you're telling the truth. So you're not giving a misleading or false statement to an insurance company. You're telling the truth because your client did ask you to put that in. And you managed to do that by not, you see, you're not allowed, if you're a contractor in most states anyway, you're not allowed to tell the client to file a claim or how to file a claim or steer them towards a claim. You know, like if you're knocking on their door and saying, hey, you've got damage, or you might have damage, or I found damage, here's what you need to do. You need to file a claim. You know, you can't do that. In most places that I know of, you can't do that. That's against the law. Maybe you didn't know that, but you cannot do that, right? So way to get around that is, hey, you know, a lot of people in the area have damage, and what they do is they file a claim with their insurance company, and the insurance company sends out an adjuster, and the adjuster looks at everything and inspects it, and they typically pay them, you know, for their damages so that they can get everything repaired. See, we're basically saying the same thing, but we're wording it differently so that we can comply with laws. You know, if we're going to try to make the insurance company pay us because we have to comply with other laws like building codes, then we should be cognizant and diligent and make sure that we try to obey all laws, right? So anyway, hope you're having an awesome Saturday. Thought maybe you guys would like to see this and see some different parts of the country, wherever you are, more damage. But I know that's one thing I enjoy about my job is the ability to go in all these different places and look at all different types of roof systems in Colorado and Texas and Kansas and Illinois and Florida and all these places. So it's a lot of fun. I love my job a whole lot. Here's the other side of that sucker. Same damage over on the other side here. We'll look at this side out there with the drone, because we're of course not going to walk on that. The drone's pretty good, by the way. You know, 4K, get right up on it, and that helps me to inspect stuff like that, or like a tile roof or shake, slate, metal. A lot of times you won't find me walking on that stuff. I don't think it's a good idea. I think the drone does a better job, because if you're going to walk on it, you have to be all careful, and you don't tend to really cover the whole thing to look at the whole thing, whereas a drone can fly right over top of it and look at the whole thing. What I do is I make a video, I record everything as a video. It's kind of hard to see the screen when you're out in the sun sometimes to really see that damage. So I'll make a video and then go back later and then make actual screen grabs of images. Yeah, because there's no easy way out for me, because I actually put in the work on everything. No automation, no templates. I put in the work. Hope you guys are having an awesome weekend. I'm working Saturday afternoon, El Paso, Texas. Keep grinding.